Let's also introduce Chirayu Thakkar, foreign policy expert, joining us on the broadcast. Thank you for joining us. Mr. Thakkar, what do you make of the incident? What are your first thoughts? Because there are so many questions that still come to mind. The shooter has now been identified, but further details on whether it was a lone wolf attack, whether this is a larger conspiracy not being revealed by the FBI yet. But look at the details. This is the former president of the United States. He's the presidential nominee. He was campaigning. There are people at the venue who are said to have told the officials, the secret services, that there is a man who is on the rooftop, and yet nothing was done. What do you make of the details that are available at this point?
Pratibha, good afternoon, and thank you for having me. It's a very unfortunate incident. The fact of the matter is that there were security lapses. In fact, now some of the rally attendees have spoken on camera to various news channels that they actually intimated the police that there is someone there with the gun who is crawling upstairs. Now, this level of shocking detail has come, and despite intimating them in advance, if no action was taken, there is a serious lapse. This will be scrutinized to the best detail available, and heads will roll because this is a major security leap. But the fact of the matter is that this election need not be this polarized. What this is reflecting is a larger phenomena of a hyper-fractionalized, hyper-vicious polity where even ordinary citizens find political violence to be accepted. And this is a more worrying phenomenon. And of course, we are fortunate that President Trump survived. But this is not ideally how it should be in a democracy.
Okay. I've been asking this since morning. Do you view this as a turning point in the elections? This happened during the campaign, and look at Trump's response as well. This already comes at a time when the support for Joe Biden seems to be dwindling even within the Democratic supporters. So at a time like this, an incident like this taking place, and Trump's response to it as well, the very, very powerful imagery of immediately just moments after the attack as he emerged with his fist up with a national flag right behind him. How is it going to affect the presidential elections in the United States going forward?
Well, it's no doubt that President Trump's campaign is going to milk every vote out of this. Already there is a 6% national lead for Donald Trump. And of the 4 swing states that determine the U.S. elections, Trump is leading in 3 of them with a healthy margin. Now, with this assassination attempt and the sympathy vote that would ensue, I think it could make the election more decisive in the favor of Donald Trump. But we also have to remember, if you survey a little bit of American media in the last 6 hours since those gunshots were fired, on the other side, there is no sympathy. So the other side is equally hardened. Now Donald Trump's candidacy is framed in a very moralizing terms that he is a threat to American democracy, and those who believe in that idea, they are not going to sympathize with Trump. So with the independent voter, how it pans out, we still need to see, and in the few days, of course, the polling numbers will be out, but this can be a major turning point for this election.
Okay, all right. It could be a turning point. And let's just look at what is the information available at this point. I request you to stay on with us. Let's go across to my colleague Ankit, who is joining us with the details of the visuals that were available, including the fact that the shooter was seen in a close range at quite a distance, immediately behind the audience, but he was in direct range of the former U.S. president. Take a look at this explanation of the visuals available at this point.
So let's just take a look at what we know, what we've seen, and what we have visuals of. First of all, and the telling visual is Donald Trump was shot at. He was hit with a bullet on his right ear. The bullet pierced the ear. It led to blood being seen very evidently on Trump's cheek. He was then taken off the stage. While being taken off the stage, he thumped his fist in the air and made a defiant gesture, mouthing the word "fight." Now, the next visual tells us where this shooter had fired from. It turns out that across from this rally venue in Butler, Pennsylvania, was a shed of approximately 1 floor in height. And on top of that, here is where the shooter is. At this point, from our understanding, the shooter has already been neutralized by the Secret Service. An AR style rifle was recovered from this location. We have another visual where there are security officials surrounding this body. We'll be playing those out also for you shortly. Let's just take a look at what this area is like. It's a rural area. There are not too many buildings in its surroundings. It's not like many US cities where if a person is making a speech, there are several high locales from where potentially a shooter may have access. There are not too many around, and there is a layout that has come to the fore that tells us what the line of fire may have been. Now, if you see here, Donald Trump is addressing a rally at roughly this venue. There is a stage behind him. Trump is seated here. This is roughly where this shooter is believed to have fired from. This is the shed that we see in this visual above, and so he fired towards Trump. Trump was standing with his left profile, and the bullet hit his right ear. Trump was effectively right in front, perhaps looking towards where the shooter was, and some of these bullets perhaps killed the other rally goer, the one who has been confirmed to have been deceased, and may have hurt the two who are critical and are battling for their lives, on whom we don't yet know what their status is. So this is roughly what we know to have happened. These are a lot of visuals that are being shared on US media. The FBI, the Secret Service, and the other agencies have commented on some of them, not commented on several of them. There are also eyewitnesses who claim that they warned the agencies that there was suspicious activity. Let's listen in now. I'm told there is another response from a security official. Let's listen into that as well.
In fact, world leaders are condemning the attack on Donald Trump, and in the latest we have the reaction from the Australian Prime Minister. Listen in.
So I was shocked by the terrible scenes at former President Trump's campaign event in Pennsylvania. I'm relieved by the news that the former president is safe and doing fine, and I wish him and his family well. I applaud the swift work of US security agencies. I'm also saddened by reports that a member of the audience has lost their life and other attendees have been injured, and I send my condolences on behalf of Australia to their loved ones in this time of grief.
So the Australian Prime Minister expressing shock over the incident and also expressing condolences to the audience member who lost his life in the incident. But there are also world leaders across the world, in fact, who are condemning the incident, including Prime Minister Modi, who said there is no place for violence in the world of politics. Going back to Mr. Thakkar, on the details available at this point, we were talking about what is the impact that it is going to have in the presidential race. But does this incident also put President Trump at odds with what he believes in? He's somebody who has spoken of not having control over guns across the country. That's a debate that comes up in the United States time and again. Does this put him at odds with what he believes in? In fact, just hours before that, Joe Biden had also spoken about how the president has spoken about not having gun controls in the country. So what is the impact is going to have? Or you think this is an assault rifle, so it doesn't really put him at odds with what he believes in?
Well, gun control is a major issue, and this kind of violence always leads to these questions of background checks and, the lax arrangements for selling of guns, and the Republicans have always sided with it. So it does put some sort of pressure on what Donald Trump believes, and but he'll not be moderated by this sort of event, because the whole idea would be the spotlight the Trump campaign would try to put back is on the idea of left-wing violence. And what they have been seeing since the BLM protests broke out in the US, the Trump campaign and the Republicans, they have been consistently saying that there's a disproportionate focus on January 6th. There is always unusual highlight by the mainstream American media when something goes wrong on the right, but when it comes to the left, they are not equally speaking about left-wing violence. And I think they will try to make this issue all about left-wing violence. And if this individual, we don't know if he is an isolated individual or if it's a part of some movement, but if this individual turns out to to be an anarchist or a left-wing sympathizer or any such sort of a club or movement, if he's a part of it, then then that message will be more aggressively pushed to American voters.
Okay, we'll speak about whether this fragments the already polarized American landscape or not. Let's just go across to my colleague Ankit, who's joining us with the reactions that are coming in from across the world. Ankit, shock over the incident. This is a former president of the United States that we're speaking about. He's a presidential nominee. He has been shot at, with the FBI now also confirming this is a clear assassination bid.
No doubt, and world leaders have been responding, particularly on social media, all through the morning. So we've got Emmanuel Macron, President of France, and he writes, "My thoughts are with President Donald Trump, the victim of an assassination attempt. I send him my wishes for a speedy recovery. A spectator has died, several are injured. It is a tragedy for our democracies." France shares the shock and indignation of the American people. We've also read out Prime Minister Narendra Modi's tweet. Let's do it once more. "Deeply concerned by the attack on my friend, former President Donald Trump, strongly condemn the incident. Violence has no place in politics and democracies. Wish him a speedy recovery. Our thoughts and prayers are with the family of the deceased, those injured, and the American people." Secretary of State of the United States, Anthony Blinken, "I am shocked and saddened by the shooting at former President Trump's rally and grateful that he is safe. As the president said," that's Joe Biden, "there is no place for political violence in America and we must all condemn it." And lastly, Ivanka Trump, "Thank you for your love and prayers for my father and for the other victims of today's senseless violence in Butler, Pennsylvania. I am grateful to the Secret Service and all other law enforcement officers for their quick and decisive actions today. I continue to pray for our country. I love you, Dad, today and always."
Okay, all right, Ankit, thank you for joining us with the details of the reactions that are coming in, world leaders from the Trump family as well. Mr. Chirayu Thakkar, we were talking about how the political landscape in the United States in the previous elections onwards has only been even more fragmented. After this incident, is it going to be further polarized? How do you see this pan out?
Well, the polarization, as anyone can imagine, would be intensified. Trump enjoys almost cult-like popularity within his fan base, and they are going to see an assault, a collective assault with this assassination attempt, and the kind of messaging that is coming out from the other side. Of course, there's this formal sympathies, but if you purvey a little bit of media on the other side, they are talking about all sorts of things. I was just recently, before coming on your show, watching some of the things, and someone said that, "Oh, Trump should not have, raised his fist," and so on and so forth. So instead of making this a genuine sympathy thing, the other side's attacks on Trump's personality and what he stands for continues. And the other side is genuinely not sorry. In fact, if you look at the Twitter, there are some of the people who are expressing this sort of vicious and very disgusting take that he missed by an inch or something like that. There are loonies on both sides. And this is going to further exacerbate that kind of situation. And mind you, Trump, what we have seen in the last few years in US polity, I was just looking at another survey. There are, I think, anywhere between 50 to 70% of students who doesn't want to dorm with the other side, their political opponents or people who have opposing views. These are 20-year-old. So this kind of hyper-fractionalized or hyper-polarized society, and in that society, this kind of, eye-grabbing political assassination, high-profile political assassination attempts, when it happens, it is but obviously going to further polarize both ends of the society.
Okay, all right. Stay with us. The details available at this point, of course, also include the FBI confirming the identity of the shooter, but they've said that the motive is still not clear. Stay with us. We have more political reactions coming in from the country. The BJP has raised the past incidents. In fact, that's the detail coming in of the political reactions coming in. The BJP has raised past bids on Prime Minister Modi's life. Amit Malviya raising the 2013 Patna rally. Let's go across to my colleague Ankit, joining us with the details of the politics within the country that's brewing over the incident. Yes, Ankit.
So I have a couple of tweets here. The BJP is listing 3 incidents where the Prime Minister's life was what was made an attempt on, or rather there was a plot. Let's read Amit Malviya's tweet. He says, never forget when Narendra Modi was the prime ministerial candidate in 2013, 6 blasts went off during his rally in Patna. The terrorists had originally planned to assassinate Modi using a suicide bomber. We all remember this. It was in the lead up to the Modi wave 2014 elections. Shehzad Poonawala lists a few more. He says the assassination attempt on Donald Trump reminds us of 3 big attempts to harm PM Modi. 2013 Patna rally blasts, then the Bhima Koregaon plot to assassinate him. We know this. There was a letter that was recovered, and a number of those who were involved are still in jail. There is a political fight that has continued for a number of years over that. And the major security lapse in Punjab in 2022, we all remember this in when on a flyover in Punjab, while on his way to address a rally, there was a block on the flyover, and for about half an hour the PM's convoy was stuck on a flyover, eventually having to return. And he says in all these 3 events, the Congress ecosystem showed sympathy towards the potential harmers and ridiculed, mocked, celebrated the attempts to harm PM Modi.
Okay, all right, Ankit, stay with us. We have Amit Malviya himself joining us on the broadcast. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Amit Malviya. Why do you believe that India has lessons in the incident that has taken place in the United States?
Well, what happened in the United States is very unfortunate. America, that was seen as the beacon of democracy, is today seeing assassination attempt being made on a former president who is running for the office again. This is unprecedented. But this is not the first time in recent years where conservative leaders around the world have been targeted. We saw Japan's Abe Shinzo. He was targeted. He unfortunately did not survive. Then you had the Slovakian Prime Minister, Robert Fico, who was targeted similarly. He's just resumed his duties after a long hiatus. And now this attempt on Donald Trump has erring similarities to how Prime Minister Modi's rally in Patna was attacked in 2013. It was a massively attended program. Almost 10 lakh people were in attendance, and there were explosions that went off. In fact, it was later discovered that a bomb was planted right under the dais on which leaders were, including the prime ministerial candidate at that point in time, Mr. Modi. And therefore, there is a very perceptible trend here where the global left network is out to discredit and demonize popular, powerful leaders so that they can dislodge them or, grab elected governments so that they can stamp their hegemony. Now, this is a very worrying trend for the world. It is definitely deeply worrying for America. And of course, there are parallels here in India. Even in these elections, the 2024 general election, we saw a huge amount of external intervention. Therefore, we as Indians need to be very conscious of what is happening around the world. We have lessons to learn from them, and we need to be really watchful of the disinformation that goes around here in India, as well as such vile attempts which are meant to harm leaders who stand in the way of the left hegemony.
Okay, all right. Mr. Amit Malviya, thank you for joining us. The BJP says there are lessons to be learned. The violence should make those at home stop using extremist languages because it can have repercussions. Thanking our guest as well for joining us on the